Well, welcome back to another episode of Buffalo Happy Hour. Mike, how are you today? You doing all right? You feeling good? You living large?
I was doing good until on the way here, I witnessed something that was unbelievably aggravating, and I want the people to know of a pro tip while driving. So, some of you, this may occur in your brain as common sense. Obviously, common sense is not common, which is why I witnessed the event today. So after work, obviously went home, got situated, and then shot over here. And on the way here, I was on a main road called Union, and we were all approaching a red light. So I was in the left-hand lane. There was one car in front of me, so they were the first to get to the red light. It was yellow. The car in front of me easily could have made the red light, which would have made it easier for me since I'm in a half-ton truck. Mm-hmm. But whatever, Luckily, I changed my brake pads, so I was able to stop. And then there was a semi behind me. And the semi wasn't detached. It was pulling a trailer, okay? So I don't know what's in the trailer. I don't just assume that there's nothing in the trailer. Even if there was nothing in the trailer, that's still weight. Mm-hmm. And a woman, older, like 60, 65, which I'm not saying that's old. I'm just saying that's older than me.
That's old.
Relax. So she's in a minivan, and she's in the right-hand lane, darts into the left-hand lane, cutting off a semi with probably 20 feet before the red light. So it's like last second, she just cuts in front of a semi. And I'm like, you know what? If you would have got rear-ended, you would have been forced into my truck and rear-ended me because you just had to make the left-hand turn on the other side of the overpass onto French. And we're by Costanza Rolls before the overpass, that last light where Old French is that connects to Clinton.
Yeah.
So she just
Like
cuts
Gary
over.
Pools in Leisure?
Yeah. So I'm sitting there and I throw my hands up in the rearview mirror. Like, what was the point? Do you think that your minivan will not be able to outrun the semi once we get to the overpass? I mean, obviously, you're going to be much faster off the start of the green light where you could just have waited 6 seconds, avoided a multiple rear-end collision, and then easily just merged into the left lane once the light turned green to then merge again to make the left onto French.
Was she first then? If you guys were at the light together?
No, we were approaching the red light.
So she would have been behind you and the semi was to your left.
Correct. No. So the semi was directly behind me.
Yeah,
so she changed lanes, cut the semi off to then be between me and the semi at the red light. And she did that with like 20 feet remaining before the red light.
Sounds safe.
So what, do you just assume that there's no weight in their trailer? Like, these things can't stop on a dime. They're massive vehicles.
Yeah, and it's not like there's 1,000 viral videos going around of semis just exploding other cars because they can't stop fast enough.
Which then puts me at risk. Like, how self-centered are you that you can't even understand basic driving norms to realize that that's not a good idea? So, am I okay? Yes, I'm okay today. But do I just wish I had like an AT4 on the back of my truck? We're probably going to get demonetized, but I can just hit a button.
Most people don't know what AT4 means.
Yeah. And then just blow up their vehicle and just be like, you don't belong here. You know what I mean? Like, why are you on the road? I get so mad. I get so mad when I drive because I see the dumbest garbage. It just blows my mind.
Is that your number one pet peeve when driving? It's just people. I know that we had a pet peeve episode, but is that your number one where just people just do stupid stuff that doesn't make any sense? Because mine is I hate when people pull out in front of me when there's nobody behind me.
That
it's
also
like you
pisses
literally
me
could have
off.
waited,
Yep.
But now you're in front of me going minus the speed limit because I don't know. There's no reason behind it.
Or if you're in the right-hand lane, there's no one behind you in either lane, and then somebody cuts you off to pull out to then just get in the left lane because they see you in the right lane. Like, you couldn't have just waited 4 seconds and then just pulled out into the left lane. Like, what is wrong with you? I get so mad.
People are dumb.
Yeah, it's one of my pet peeves.
Can you do me a favor and just rotate my camera so I'm more in the center?
No.
Because I feel like I'm not being captured right now. Or it's not... other way. What are you doing? So I'm in the center.
You put me in charge of a camera. Hold on.
So I'm in the center. Keep going. Oh. Nailed it. Welcome back. No. But yeah, so that is very frustrating, and it would have been even worse if you got rear-ended. What would you have done if she actually
I would
hit
have
you?
smashed her windshield in. No, honestly, I would have got out of I would have exited my vehicle very calmly, walked past my B pillar, walked up to her A pillar, and then just stared at her with this look of, I hope you realize that you have an IQ of 5 and your license should be revoked. And then I would probably just verbally assault her to the point where she felt so small in the world. And then I just would have walked away after consuming her soul and made her feel that much weaker as a human being.
Wow, what a feminist you are. What what are the legalities behind that? If
Verbally assaulting someone? Nothing. That's why you do that instead of verbally assaulting, or not verbally, physically assaulting them.
No, like what are the legalities? Because technically the truck rear-ended her, but you're obviously there as a witness to say, look, she was an idiot. Well, who would the cops side with? Oh, New York is no fault anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, from an insurance standpoint, yeah.
Right.
But I think from issuing the ticket, she would have gotten the ticket.
Because you would have been there to say, listen, it was extremely unsafe.
Most semis have dash cam footage
that's true,
and cameras anyways, but yeah, like it's, I don't, if that, is that considered failure to yield?
Or just ineptitude of driving.
Well, yeah, I mean, if I was a cop and if it's an option, just revoke their license plate, and their license. Like, you don't belong on the road. You're an idiot, and I would tell them that you're an idiot. Like, why would you cut off a semi at a red light? What is the rush? What are you doing? You going to Muddy Taco? What's on French Road? There's a Consumers. Yeah, seriously. There's a Consumers,
Dairy Queen,
a McDonald's, and
Stellar Dental. Are you going to get your teeth done?
Stellar Dental and the French Pub.
Nobody wants to go there, especially during COVID.
I love their food.
Yeah, I know. They actually do have really good food.
Yeah, they have a super good Pittsburgh salad.
But yeah, other than
shout outs. But yeah, there's like, what are you doing?
Do you want to be on French Pub?
I know.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. But that would have been a great ending to your day.
One of the best. Yeah, I don't know. I probably would have like stabbed her tire with a knife. I would have got so mad. But obviously I wouldn't. I would have, made sure she was okay. Made sure obviously the semi truck driver's totally fine because he's 15 feet above the road.
Yeah,
but,
well, people do that anyway on the thruway. I mean, stoplights are one thing, but thruway also sucks because you're in rush hour traffic and you're cutting off semis. At least they know that there's another stoplight ahead of them, so they're already slowing down. But sometimes semis on the thruway don't know that traffic's just going to stop out of nowhere. I would hate to be a semi driver.
Me too. I can't. Nope. My dad did it for years. I can't do it.
Really?
Yeah, he was a driver. I just can't. I don't have the patience.
Well, that's the thing, too. I feel like I would be cussing everybody out. I hate driving to and from work. Can you imagine driving for work? I mean, you do it right now.
Yeah.
But driving a huge semi where people just don't care, I don't know how people do it. And, I mean, I guess they do get paid pretty good money, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a living wage. The whole thing just really bothers me. But anyways.
Don't they have beds in the back?
In some of the cabins they do.
They just have a mattress, though, right? It's not like a luxury apartment back there.
It depends on the driver and their rig, because it's not a truck; it's a rig.
Why? I don't know. Did your dad ever have to have one, or was he not like crossing?
He wasn't driving that scale. He was driving smaller semis, but if that makes any sense, he still had a CDL and all that fun stuff. But yeah, he wasn't.
But some are like tasked with driving from here to North Carolina. Which then I would assume that you have to have a bed in the back because you're not going to make that trip in the allotted time. Semi-drivers are similar to like pilots, right? Where you can't drive for a certain amount of time continuously. You have to take a sleep. Yeah. You got to go to sleep. Yeah. So in that situation, I'm sure. But if you're going from like New York or Buffalo to Syracuse, you don't have to.
No, God, no. No, that's like a normal run.
Yeah.
But yeah, at work, we ship stuff down to like Florida. So we have guys that come up and load everything and drive down to Florida, and it's there in like 2 days.
God, I would hate that.
No doubt.
Are you allowed to bring somebody with you?
I don't think
Probably not. That's a liability, right?
Yeah, probably.
So you're stuck in the semi for like 3 days.
Yeah.
You got to go to sleep by yourself in the back of your truck. They don't even set you up in a hotel room. And you have to make your mark because they have certain...
Oh, yeah. There's a huge time hack.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
God.
Not for me.
I would not like that.
Nope.
At least now I don't have it. Like, I'll just leave earlier. But sometimes you don't have that luxury.
Right.
You don't have that luxury when you're a semi-driver. You got to be at the place by this time and be at the next place by that time.
Yeah.
You don't have any wiggle room.
No.
That's why you speed down.
For the most part.
That's why you got to watch your shows on the road. keep the eyes off the road. You know what I'm saying?
Doing 4 things at once.
And that's why people get rear-ended at stoplights. So,
Yeah.
well, that sucks.
Yeah. So we should dive into what we're drinking.
Oh, yeah. So what do we got here?
You ready?
Oh, sure.
Okay,
Sure
so
are.
we have Devil's River Rye Whiskey. It's 90 proof. Their rye has been recognized as one of the best rye whiskeys aged less than 10 years. The whiskey's been awarded 14 medals from some of the most prestigious spirits competitions. Devil's River Rye has won 6 gold medals and 1 double gold from the San Diego International Sports Competition. Sports Competition. There you go, Mike. Idiot. Spirits Competition, and recognized as Rye of the Year by the New York International Spirits Competition. Few things that we have to mention about Devil's River is they have a new kick-ass distillery in the heart of downtown San Antonio. So, let's see. Let's talk about all the things about their new distillery. So, it's the new home of Devil's River Distillery. So, essentially they moved. It's bigger, better, all the things. It's 1 block away from the Alamo and the San Antonio River Walk. It's in the Burns Building, which is on the National Register of Historic Places and filled with majestic beauty.
What is it? Do you know?
What, the Burns Building?
Burns Building is?
What it was previously?
Yeah.
Why
is it a historical building?
Most likely due to when it was built.
I'll look it up while you keep talking about it.
Yeah, and then probably because of the Alamo. However, it is currently undergoing extensive renovations to make room for their sinfully majestic, smooth whiskey to flow through it. And essentially, they have a lot of things there. They offer live music. They have a lot of appetizers that are all tempting. And then they also have a cocktail bar that's pre-prohibition. Sorry, I'm all over the place with my notes, and I'm trying to look at you, and I'm waiting to see if there's any other added info before I get too deep into the next point. But if not, then it's fine.
It just says the Burns Building was once a facet of iconic retail district along Houston Street in the early to mid 20th century. However, Hugh Burns, from who the building is named, originally intended to be a splendid office building, as the Rivard Report recounted in 2017. So it's probably just old.
Sweet. So they offer live music at the new distillery. They have a large menu, and their cocktail recipes are also being showcased at their new pre-prohibition style bar, which is cool. On top of that, if anybody wants to learn more about Devil's River whiskey, we dove into the original distillery and what Devil's River is with the limestone content in our previous episode where we featured their small batch straight bourbon. So listen to that. And then you can also find them on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. And of course, do not forget about the conservation efforts they promote and continuously invest in, which directly helps maintain the Devil's River.
Yeah. I think that out of all the distilleries and all the product you and I have had on this show, Devil's River is number 1 for me on places that I want to go visit.
No doubt.
Just because they're just so diverse.
Yeah, it's a very intricate distillery. It's not just a one facet thing. It's multifaceted.
And their products are fantastic too.
Yes, they are.
I love it.
Me too.
So, yeah, we have their rye, and we'll get into the rating, but we never even talked about what we did this weekend.
2 seconds. What's the mash bill on this too?
It's 51% rye, 45% corn, and 4% barley.
Okay.
So I feel like this is going to taste like an upscale version of Cask and Crew's rye. Because their rye was also 51% rye and 49% corn. So I think that it's going to be very similar to... Not the tasting notes are going to be similar, but like on the next level.
Sure. All right.
But we got to talk about what we even did this weekend. What did we do with the boys?
We brewed some beer, and it is a thick stout.
Yeah. So we teamed up with Breyer Brothers, and we went over to their spot to brew some beer. Dylan and Joel had this idea of creating some sort of stout that kind of involved like some of the whiskey notes that we have. We still have to work on it to see how much more whiskey notes they're going to add, depending on the flavor of it. But yeah, we went over there at 9:45, and it was just a bro day. It was such a fun time.
Yeah, we got there early morning and basically emptied our bags because we brought a ton of food, so that was cool. And then we got right to work initially, did the first couple steps, and setting everything up, and then we had to wait a couple hours. In that lag of time where the beer was doing its thing, it was boiling, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. It was rolling, too.
Yeah.
That stuff was rolling.
Yeah. We went to a park, and you made me do something that I'm not a fan of, but I did. And I'm 100% still not going to invest in it.
Oh, stop it.
Not doing it.
So for everybody that doesn't know what he's talking about, I'm a big disc golf fan. I love disc golf. It's a fun sport. It's a sport that you can do for free to stay active and go hiking through some cool parks. For some reason, you're extremely against it. No idea why. But there's a local park in the area that is next to where we were brewing, and we took you. So how'd you think of it? Your first day out disc golfing?
It was one of the most demasculating things I've ever done in my life. And I would rather golf.
But golfing is expensive. You know that.
So is losing a disc.
Well, then don't lose a disc.
Oh, sure.
You don't have to pay to go disc golfing.
I know that.
You just have to get your set of discs. We can get you a set of 3 discs, a driver, a mid-range, and a putter for like $30. That's cheaper than a golf outing. And then you can go whenever you want. There's so many disc golf courses in and around the Buffalo area that you can just go whenever you want.
Or I could spend $30 on deer tags and go hunt in the woods and come home with meat and fill my freezer instead of a sore rotator cuff and tennis elbow.
I mean, you could do both. Why can't you do both?
You can do both. It's the beauty of this country. However,
damn right.
The other beauty of this country is that I can choose which one I want to do, and I would much rather hunt than go frolf somewhere.
No, you wouldn't. I'm telling you, man, we'll get you hooked. But anyway.
The only Frisbee activity that I'm a fan of, there's 2. One is Can Jam, and the other is Ultimate Frisbee, and that's because I can essentially tackle people while playing. That's it.
Weren't you were telling me that you cracked some chick's collarbone?
We're not going to go there, but for all those who kind of heard him, yes, I ended up breaking a girl's collarbone while playing Ultimate Frisbee way back when. It was 2010, 2009 time frame. I'm sure she's fine now. I don't know. Maybe she drank some milk.
If that chick hit you today, you would have broke her collarbone too. You'd have been like, hey, man, go catch this Frisbee real quick.
Beep.
And just nailed her with your truck. Just kidding. But yeah, so we ended up making this stout. Back to it. Oh, beep. I thought you were beeping because of the horn of your truck.
No.
Well, cheers, man.
Cheers.
Ooh. Dude.
Here, turn the bottle. More to the labels. There you go.
This is good, man. I'm getting like little apple.
I am too.
We'll get into it. So, back to the original point. We went to Bry Brothers. We brewed some beer. We put all the mash in. Dylan was fantastic. I mean, this is one of the things that I love about doing this podcast is we've learned so much along the way, and we've met some incredible people that are allowing us to help them in the process and not just hear about it after the fact. So Dylan and Joel, they were great. They basically said, do this part and then do this part. And we did some of the legwork for them. I mean, we were mixing in the malt. We were doing whatever they wanted us to do. So you and I now theoretically know how to brew beer. It would probably turn out terribly, but we know how to do it.
Kind of.
I mean,
a lot of the actual science behind it was already pre-done, just because the boy knows what to do.
Oh my God! Yeah.
So he's a subject matter expert. Take the wheel. Just let me know what I can clean. But yeah, I mean, there was like the grain was already measured out, and all we had to do was just pour it in. There was no thinking behind it on our end. So yes, we now understand more of the steps, but the duration for how long you should do. I mean, yeah, we would just overboil it. I don't even know.
Again, it would come out terribly.
Yeah,
but we could do it.
I mean, the whirlpool would probably be all over the walls, but it's fine. We were there.
Yeah, so we put it after we got done like whirlpooling it and getting it all up to boil, and it was literally rolling. It was just great to watch. But we put the ABV thing in, and it was like 15%.
Yeah, it was 14.4% before it fermented. I think that's it.
Yeah, now it's in the fermentation tanks.
Yeah, so it'll drop, but it's going to one's enough. All right, one's enough.
Yeah.
So,
and they're also selling, or they did sell these awesome sweatshirts.
Yes,
which I'm in love with. I don't have any hoodies. I have like zip ups and quarter zips and all that, and crew necks.
Flex.
But dude, I love hoodies.
I
forgot
hoodies.
how much I love hoodies.
Yeah,
and this is so comfortable.
Good,
so,
man.
Go check the guys out, Briar Brothers Brewing on Instagram.
Yes,
and go follow their process because they have some exciting things coming up, and they make some amazing beer.
Yeah, their beer's really good.
What I like about them too is they don't do like the same beer over again.
Right.
They consistently are changing their like mash bill. Basically, they're adding new ingredients. They have this punch bowl series that they call it, where they keep the base basically the same, but they keep adding in new and different fruit that nobody's ever heard of. Right now, they just put out a soursop. What in the world is a soursop? You ever heard of a soursop before?
No.
So they just keep destroying the game. Their beers are fantastic, and you got to go follow them because they're a great time, and they're cool dudes.
Yeah, they're two local dudes from West Seneca. Awesome guys. So thank you again, Briar Brothers, for your hospitality. We appreciate you, and we're looking forward to tasting the beer in about 2.5, 3 weeks now. So
hell yeah.
Thank you.
When this goes out, it'll probably be ready.
No.
Yeah, dude. 2 weeks from today.
No, they said 4 weeks total.
Yeah.
It's only been like 2 days.
Yeah, true. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. we'll be testing it along the way.
Yeah.
All right, so back to the whiskey here.
You want to rate it?
Rate or cocktail section.
All right, we'll do cocktail section first, and we'll dive into the rating because there's a lot to this. So I'm excited.
Let me get out my cocktail.
All right, I got mine all ready to go.
All right, weird flex.
I know. Just drop the beef for the cocktail section.
Cocktails.
Mine is a Devil's River Chilled Blackberry Rye.
Ooh.
The ingredients is 1.5 ounces of Devil's River Rye whiskey, 1/2 ounce of lime juice, 3/4 ounce blackberry simple syrup, 3 ounce ginger beer, some mint leaves, and blackberries. To make it, you add all ingredients to a shaker with ice, you strain the liquid into a glass with ice, and then you garnish with mint and a blackberry.
Ooh. What are your thoughts on blackberries?
I can eat them. I don't like the phones, but I can eat them.
They're necessary. I can eat them. What does that mean? What do you mean you can eat them? You can eat all berries.
No, there's some poisonous berries out there in the wilderness.
Oh, brother.
Well,
all right. For
there
the
are.
regular person, they're not going to eat poisonous berries. Where do you rank blackberries on your berry rating scale?
Fairly high, just because it's more of a treat. I don't go out of my way to buy them, but I don't hate them. You know?
Do you think they're too sour?
No. I think what is that thing? Is it an airhead?
What?
What are those super sour
Warhead?
warheads?
Airhead are those like taffy things.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Warheads. You had so many of those, you peeled your tongue off.
Hell yeah, I did. It
Christ.
was a great time.
What's your cocktail?
That's what Make America is great.
You're a disaster.
Devil's River Rye Pumpkin Spice Latte.
All right, tell me about it.
All right, so it's 8 ounces of strong brewed coffee, 1 ounce of Devil's River Rye whiskey, and 0.5 ounces of pumpkin spice coffee creamer. You garnish it with whipped cream, caramel, cinnamon spice, and a cinnamon stick, and this is how you make it. You add coffee, rye whiskey, and creamer to a mug, and then you top it with whipped cream, caramel, and a sprinkle of cinnamon. Pretty straightforward, but man, would it be a crowd pleaser.
Well, if you don't follow us on Instagram, please do. Buffalo Happy Hour 12. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we post cocktail section. So you get to see these, and all the instructions and all the ingredients are posted there for you for easy reference. So feel free to dive into that because these will be featured soon.
Yeah, we got to start, and maybe once we get our own space, and we start getting unlimited money because it's going to happen. We're going to be part of the 1% sooner or later. We will start, instead of creating these cocktail posts, we'll do IGTV videos of you and I making these cocktails instead of the posts. That way people can follow along and see what it actually looks like. Because a lot of these websites that we go to for this, Devil's River does a great job where they put the graphic next to it. Or at least if it's not the graphic of the cocktail itself, it is the graphic of the ingredients that are in it. But some places do not have that type of foresight where they're putting it next to, or a picture of the actual cocktail. So sometimes when we post these Cocktail Tuesday, Cocktail Thursday posts, we have nothing for it to go with. So eventually you and I can do where we actually create the cocktails and then we can drink them after, because I'm always down for a drink. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Let's move on to rating this.
Right? But don't you agree?
Until you did the snap. Yeah.
The finger guns?
Oh, my God. So, yes, we will do that. Eventually, the entire room that we call a studio is going to be sticky because we're going to spill everything everywhere.
No, just our bar. Dude, I have this perfect outline for a studio once we get it. It's basically already designed in my mind.
Perfect. We'll talk about it after.
It's going to be just...
it's going to be one of the greatest.
It's going to be leather-bound books. It's going to be mahogany walls. It's going to be glass chandeliers. It's going to be all that stuff, man. You wait.
I'll let you design it.
We're going to be so poor.
Just give me a time and place. Yeah, we are. Oh, my goodness.
I am so antsy to just do this. And it's going to lead to my eventual bankruptcy.
It reminds me of the Google Doc that we share, where I type in like simple things and then you show up and just destroy all of it. And you're like, what are you doing? No, You got to add a bullet here. Let me add 15 notes here.
Yeah, you're like, Derek, maybe we should move the podcast space from your basement to the garage. I'm like, Mike, hear me out. What if I bought a house? What if I bought a whole new house for us to do this in? It's like just throwing away the bathwater with the baby. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean, but you know what I'm saying.
What is your baby Quasimodo? Oh my God.
Throwing away the baby with the bathwater. That's what I meant. I got them reversed. I don't even know how that applies to what we were talking about.
It literally does. That's child abuse. And now CPS is going to show up.
All right, we're talking about breaking some chick's collarbone. So listen.
Yeah. Or slashing a woman's tire who cuts off a semi. Yeah. Anyways, Autumn Leaf, don't unsubscribe. So let's.
She's going to be paranoid about that. Her tire being flat.
I know. She's literally just going to drive around. I can't. There's going to be like mattresses attached to her vehicle so no one even like bumps into her car. Let's just dive into the rating for this. We're already off the rails. We didn't even get into the history yet.
That's fine. We're a half hour in. We're good.
How do you know?
You know the numbers below there that say 30 minutes and 40 seconds? That means about a half hour in.
Where? Thanks, Dad. Where do you look?
Down at the bottom. You see at the bottom of the... like right where it says drop audio effects here, above that there's that dark gray bar and it says 31 and it's working its way to 31:10.
Oh, yeah, that means goodness gracious. Look at that.
Yeah, I know. Fancy. Free software.
Mikey Essentials learning something.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Okay, so how do you flip between tabs, you know?
Beep. Alt-tab.
Good job, Mikey.
That's what I'm talking about.
Alt-tab.
That's right.
Go right there. Boom. All right, but anyway, let's get to this rating whiskey review.
All right, let's get serious and crush it. We gotta do good things for them.
Devil's River Rye Whiskey. This is the Wednesday whiskey review. What do you think? Label branding.
I love how classy and simple it is. And then, of course, they feature Devil's River. Obviously, you got to maintain that. Mm-hmm. Makes me happy inside. You know what I like? When I go to the store and then I see their label, their bottle semi stands out. However, the strip that's green on this, barrel strength that's red or like a dark
brown, yeah.
Wow, nailed it. Brown, and then their small batch straight is red. Mm-hmm. That's what I like. I like that a lot because then that's what I key in on to pick up instead of like a label per se, like their logo or whatever. Yeah. Like that's what I'm looking for is that linear stripe. So I like that they do that. I'm going to give this, because it also dives into everything you need to know on their label, A++.
So the side of this says exceptionally pure water. That's what makes Devil's River Rye Whiskey the smooth small batch rye whiskey you enjoy today. Legendary Texas Ranger John Coffee Hayes named this powerful waterway the Devil's River in 1840.
Sure did.
And from his ingenuity, our namesake was born. The natural filtered limestone spring water is considered the purest water in Texas. The iron-free, sweet spring water is ideal for crafting an unrivaled Texas rye whiskey. Its purity unmasks all the delightful nuances we work tirelessly to emphasize in every sip. Here's to living a life that's never short of extraordinary. Devil's River Rye Whiskey. It says that on every single bottle, and I just love that. The ending to it, I love their explanation of it. I love that they touch on the unfiltered and just the purity of the limestone water, because you can 100% call that out. That's distinct for this. That isn't in any other bourbon.
No, it's very smooth.
That pure, pureness of the water. So yeah, A++. All right, nose.
Nose, you ready?
Mm-hmm. Butterscotch and apple. That's what I'm getting on the nose.
Getting a lot of apple.
Which is so strange to me. For a rye whiskey, you don't normally pick up. Normally, it's the harshness of like the baking spice or the pepper, but the up front is that sweetness of the apple. A++ again.
Yeah, I'm gonna go A++. What else are you getting? Are you getting
butterscotch and apple?
That's it.
That's all I'm getting on the nose.
Are you getting any oak? I'm getting some oak.
On the nose, really?
It's faint, but it's there. So I'm gonna write down oak and apple, and then butterscotch.
And like a salted caramel too.
Yes, that's a good call. That to me makes more sense than butterscotch.
Okay.
Okay. A++. Initial taste. This is where you pick up a lot of the apple.
Mm-hmm.
Some honey, little oil, which is standard.
But the initial taste, yeah, mostly honey, apple, and then I'm getting a little bit of that oak in the taste. The initial taste. But what's interesting with this...
Dude, there's almost like no hug.
I know, that's what I was just going to say. What's interesting with this, especially when you compare it to other ryes, is you're not getting blasted in the face with overwhelming rye notes in the beginning. It lingers, which is where you're picking up the rye in the ending note with the baking spice and the pepper. But up front, you're not getting any of that. It's so sweet.
There's a lot of fruit in here.
Which talks to the mash bill. I mean, remember, this is a rye solely based off of 2%. This is 51% rye. If it was 49% rye, this would not be a rye. So that's why we're not getting overwhelmingly rye notes to it.
No.
Is because it's majority of rye, but just by 2%.
Yeah.
Most ryes that we have are like 75, 60%. This is very, very low.
I'm getting a sweeter fruit.
Sweeter fruit?
Yeah. I'm going to go A++ in the initial taste.
Jesus. Was knocked down our microphone.
A++ check mark initial taste.
All right. So ending note.
Are you getting like a... Not peach. What's that purple? What's the purple one that is like a peach? Plum?
Plum, yeah.
I had a plum the other day.
Tasting
that again. I'm probably totally off, but who cares? I like it.
Yeah, I don't taste plum. At the end, I just get a lot of baking spice and pepper, and like cracked black pepper at the end,
Like
as it's going down.
End of the initial taste or end of the ending note?
Ending of the ending note.
Ending of the ending note is pepper.
Yeah, and then it stays around because it seems to be pretty oily. I can feel it still in the roof of my mouth.
And the apple kind of lingers.
Mm-hmm. And the sweetness. I mean, this is a high corn too, so it's very sweet for a rye.
A++ check mark. This is super good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, A++ check mark. This is why I remember in their review of the small batch, I said I can't rate it too high because I like their rye more.
And it's remarkably beautifully priced.
Yeah.
It's annoying. Because, dude, every time you walk into the place, you're like, I gotta buy it. Like I might as well. I'm here.
It's hard to buy something else at that price point and at this flavor profile.
Especially at 90 proof, because a lot of people by us like 80, 85 proof, that range. And when you get into 90, you kind of push the envelope of, are you going to get something that's way too high with like the ethanol impact of, straight to the face, or am I going to get something else? This is just super smooth.
This is a beautiful color too.
It's a nice amber. Oh, goodness.
All right, so ending note, let's just round this out really quick.
A plus check mark.
A plus check mark with like what?
The apple,
pepper, and like baking. Are you getting any baking spice at all?
No, that was more up front than anything. Final rating. Give me that countdown, dude.
3, 2, 1.
96. 96.5. Damn.
I think this is the first company that we've had where each one of their products so far, we still have their barrel strength to do. So, but so far, this is each one of their products has been, I believe, consistently above 95. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they're crushing it. They are crushing it. And for those curious, by us in New York, each bottle's like $30 to $35.
Yeah.
Doll's hair. Just so we're all clear and everyone's understanding the language I'm speaking.
It doesn't make any sense.
For 750 milliliters. It's
of
incredible.
Good whiskey.
It's incredible. How do you say no to that? How do you say no to that? Dude, I'm getting juiced up. My palms are starting to sweat.
Because anything that you think of in that price range,
it's hit or miss.
Exactly. You get this traditional Kentucky bourbon or Tennessee whiskey like Jack Daniels or Jim Beam or like the lower Jim Beam ones. But you get into those and you're just like, it's so typical. This doesn't taste like a typical bourbon at all.
No.
Well, obviously because it's rye, but it doesn't taste like a typical whiskey to me.
Dude, there is so much apple in that.
I don't know if I've ever tasted apple in a rye.
I've never had apple in a rye. That doesn't make any sense at all. And I have an apple every day. But this is like a green apple, not a red one. It's got like the tart of a green apple, like a fresh green apple.
Speaking of which, I made cider this past weekend too.
Yeah,
we never even got to my weekend.
No one cares about the weekend, dude. Everybody cares about Breyer Brothers, and then they care about the history of Buffalo.
And then about your almost murder today.
Listen, what if a cop watches this? Then they're going to show up and start doing community policing and interviews and craziness.
But yeah, so I made cider this weekend. There was a lot of red and green apples.
Did you take your socks off and step on them real hard? And
no.
Smush them?
They have a grinder there. So you just throw these apples, and the other guy is just like trying to grind the apples up in this automated thing that dated back to 1970s. And then we put all the crushed up apples in pillowcases.
The 70s wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, I know.
All right, go ahead.
But still, it's still an old machine.
You missed my point. The 70s is not old. You have to go back to like the 1910, 1920. That's old. That's an old piece of machinery.
I don't think that motor would still be working, Michael.
Of course it would. They don't make them like they used to.
All right. Anyway, so you put all the crushed up stuff in a pillowcase, and then we put like all the apples in this mechanism that has, like you put this thing on top of all of it. It's on top of a grate. So when you squeeze down the, you know what I'm trying to say. Like there's a wheel on top, and as you wheel it down, the contraption comes down, and it pushes down all the apples to squeeze them.
Okay.
And then we put it.
So it's like a giant juicer.
Yeah. So and then we put it into barrels and then filtered it all out, and now I have 2 gallons of apple cider, 1 red, 1 green in my fridge.
Interesting.
It's so good.
I'm gonna steal some before I leave.
You cannot beat freshly juiced apple cider or apple juice. What constitutes cider? Why is it cider instead of apple juice?
You think I know the answer to that question?
All right, Google.
Are you out of your mind? You're like I knew Alt-Tab.
Devil's River commented on our post right now.
I know.
Speak of the devil. Got it. Boom. Good company to be in. Love you, Devil's River. Thank you.
You have the worst dad jokes of all dad jokes, and you're not even a dad yet. Oh my god.
I Do not do it.
Clearly.
I don't
Because
plan
you don't
them.
have any kids.
Yeah,
What?
I don't plan them. I don't plan on any of my jokes.
Yeah,
Like, remember,
I thought you were going to say, like, I don't plan any of my kids. I'm like, well, you haven't planned anything
I got
yet.
four of them around Buffalo. Just kidding. So I don't plan any of my dad jokes. Like when we were recapping the positive approach.
Yeah.
And I said like hang it by a thread. Did not plan that, but it worked out perfectly. So I'm basically meant to be a dad. But anyway, what's the difference between cider? The difference between this is good content.
This is atrocious content.
Cider? Nah, no, it's not. And apple juice.
No one cares. They just want to drink it.
Come on.
You know
Yes,
what
they
the
do.
difference is?
Apple cider is
The
made from
time of year.
apples that are washed, cut, and ground into apple mash, similar to applesauce. On the other hand, apple juice undergoes filtration to remove pulp and is then pasteurized to extend shelf life. Vacuum sealing and additional filtration help it stay fresh even longer. So, if you want quality apple juice that isn't preserved, which isn't filtered, then get apple cider because that's better. End rant.
All right, moving on. Good
All
to
right,
know.
so that was our review for Devil's River Rye Whiskey. Make sure to go to your local liquor store, and even if you don't like rye, just try it. It's so cheap to the point where you can get it and not have to worry about not liking it.
And this isn't a rye. Like, it's a rye, but it's not the traditional rye, is what I'm trying to say. In regards to tasting notes and experience and all the crazy things, Devil's River is in essentially every local liquor store. So and if they're not, then walk up to the store clerk and be like, hey, I'm here all the time. I live around the corner. Can you incorporate Devil's River whiskey onto your shelf? And then you can get it into your local liquor store. Most people can also bring it in and then let you know when the bottles are in, and then you go pick them up and buy them. Mm-hmm. That's how distribution of booze works. Check it out. So moving forward,
We're playing for points. All right, so this is the segment of our show where we talk about the history of Buffalo. If you didn't tune in last week, we are starting this new segment mini-series where we're going to delve into the history of Buffalo, starting at the pre-colonization of Buffalo, New York itself.
did you delete all my hard work?
No, it's below that. So we...
No, I put myself first.
Yeah, well, it makes sense because you even told me put you first because I had a lot to talk about. So last week we talked about the pre-colonization, which went back all the way to the Native American tribes that occupied the area before Europeans rudely came and took the land away.
Yeah, no kidding.
And today we're going to be talking about those very rude Europeans and how they took the land away. So if you didn't watch the first episode, go back and watch it. That was last week. And we're going to continue with this week's episode, episode 2, First Europeans from 1758 to 1793. So before I pass the microphone over to Michael Kelly, we are going to talk about René Robert Cavalier, Sir Lord de la Salle. Do you like
There's
that?
no French there at all. None whatsoever.
So he was born in France
When?
in November 22nd, 1643, and he died in 1687. So not a very long life. I'll tell you that much right now. That was not a well-fulfilled life.
Like mid-40s?
Yeah, I mean, that's terrible. So he was really known for setting up the...
Dude, it was the 1600s.
Yeah.
Living to 40 in the 1600s wasn't a bad life.
No, man up.
Anyways.
It's a bad life. What did you do? Discover America? What a loser. So he set up a fur trading outpost, which is basically where he got his contact with the Indians. Based off of our episode last week, we talked extensively on the local Indians really being a part of the fur trading area, which is how they really got their start. So La Salle founded the kindred spirit of Count de Frontenac, or the fighting governor of New France. And why are you laughing so hard?
Because he discovered a world superpower, and you're like, what a loser.
What a loser.
Go ahead.
From 1672 to 1682, they pursued a policy of extending French military power by establishing a fort on Lake Ontario, which is now known as Fort Frontenac, holding the Iroquois in check and intercepting the fur trade between the Upper Lakes and the Dutch and English coastal settlements. So at that fort, he controlled a large share of the fur trade, and as he continued to prosper, basically being very successful in the fur trade, he wanted to get into a new venture. So upon a visit to France in 1677, he obtained the king's authority to explore, quote, the western parts of New France, which is that area, and permission to build as many forts as he wished, as well as to hold the value monopoly of the trade in buffalo hides. So that's really where this dude got his start. And he's very prominent in the area because he was the one that started the commercial use of Lake Erie. So in the early of that following year, he built the Griffin, which is the first commercial sailing vessel on Lake Erie, which he hoped to pay for an expedition into the interior as far as the Mississippi. So he was really a traveler. He didn't find the area or founded the area, but he was monumental in getting the use of Lake Erie to their first commercial use through his building of the Griffin, which was his ship to help him sell fur trades and everything like that.
Interesting. Very interesting. So most of Western New York was granted by Charles II of England to the Duke of York. Later, King James II and the 6th?
That's the 7th. So
7th.
Yep.
Nailed it. But the first European settlement, which is now Erie County, was by the French at the mouth of the Buffalo Creek in 1758.
He meant creek, but anyway.
Buffalo accent. Shout out. Its buildings were destroyed a year later by the evacuating French after the British captured Fort Niagara. The British took control of the entire region in 1763 at the conclusion of the French and Indian War. In 1764, a British military engineer, John Matussiere, made an inspection tour of Buffalo Creek before determining on a site for a fortification on the opposite shore. So basically, John Matussiere checked out Buffalo Creek and then realized that he wanted to put a fort on the opposite shoreline. So after the 1779 Sullivan expedition, the British settled Seneca refugees in several villages on Buffalo Creek in the spring of 1780. The first white settlers along the creek were prisoners captured during the Revolutionary War. The first resident and landowner of Buffalo with a permanent presence was Captain William Johnson, who was a white Iroquois interpreter. Oh, goodness. Hold on. We're working with the TV. So, Captain William Johnson, who was a white Iroquois interpreter who had been in the area since the days after the Revolutionary War and who the Senecas granted creekside land as a gift of appreciation. His house stood at present-day Washington and Seneca Street. Former enslaved man Joseph Black Joe Hodges and Cornelius Winnie, who was a Dutch trader from Albany who arrived in 1789, they were the early settlers along the mouth of Buffalo Creek. They set up a log cabin store there in 1789 for trading with the Native American community. The British retained control of the area and prevented further settlement by Americans until their evacuation of Fort Niagara in 1796. Now, hold on a minute. You mean to tell me that Native Americans were here, living their best life? Everything was fine. Granted, they had their own war with, like, poison arrows. They got some firearms from the Chinese.
Which probably had coronavirus in them.
So scroll up a second.
Back in the day.
So scroll up a second. So all of that's going on, and then all of a sudden, white folks show up. Not to make this about race, but that's what it is, right? And they set up, after commandeering the land by force and forcing them to either be one of them or forced onto like a res, they set up a log cabin store in 1789 to then trade with the Native American community. Like, hey, we just took all of your shit. Now we're going to set up a store and then we can trade so you can take it back after we already took your land. Pretty low, dude. That's a shitty move.
Right? Well, that gets back to the whole, topic
they
of,
hate white people. Yeah.
Well,
Do you blame them?
Also, the topic of America being founded by Christopher Columbus. I mean, we just had this holiday. So you're telling me that...
Christopher... What did the Vikings do then?
Well, and that's what I'm saying. It's a valid point for people to discuss, and everybody on the woke side of the aisle, whatever side it is like, we've been saying this for 50 years. But, I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
Honestly, this land was somebody else's before the white folk decided to come and say, hey, you know what? Now this is mine.
Right. Did you do that thing in school where you were taught about conquistadors and each person was given a certain number of sticky notes and you can run around the room and place your sticky note on things that you wanted to be yours.
No.
And the British had the most sticky notes, so whoever got the stack from the teacher and that student, like, hey, you're the British, you're the French, you're the Spanish, and then go out and put your sticky notes all around the room, and we can see who has the most land at the end. And the Brits had, like, a shit ton of sticky notes, and then everybody else was just kind of like, why 2 sticky notes? It's like, well, yeah, you represent, like, Peru, you know? And, like, at the end of the day, you realize the Brits just had the resources and then just took over so much land, as did the Spanish, and you're like, well, that sucks. And then you look at the teacher like, well, I want more land. It's like, well, that's not how this works. You know what I mean? Like, and then you sit there and you realize, like, wow, they literally just took over the West.
Yeah. Well, while you were playing that, I was cheating while playing 7-Up, so I don't really know what we were doing.
Were you looking at their people? Were you looking at the shoes?
Always, dude. That was the go-ahead to winning every 7-Up game. If you know what we're talking about, leave a like in the video because I cheated so hard during that game. I would be right over the edge, like being right over the edge of the table, looking down at the shoes, and then as soon as they touched that thumb, dude, I knew exactly who had it. Yo, Jimmy, with the blue Nikes, I knew that you touched me. He's like, how did you know I had blue Nikes on? I'm like, don't worry about it. I'm up next. I was a beast at that game because I always won. I cheated so much, dude.
Oh, goodness.
But yeah, that was a mad good game.
So let's move
so
forward.
That was a game in your school?
Yeah.
Let's teach them how terribly the British were?
Well, they were teaching about that time period. And that was one of the ways that the teacher that we had at the time showed us what being a conquistador is essentially like, where you just walk around and you're like, I want that land, I want that land, and the way that they represented it was with sticky notes, and you're like, I claim the chalkboard, like that's now I'm putting my flag in the ground. Yeah. And that kind of drove home the point of the joke that we made during deployment was, well, if I'm standing on it, it's America. Like, well, it's kind of a shitty joke looking back on it, but when you're talking to a local, like, it's kind of funny, but it's, it's... But yeah, that's, it is what it is. Let's move on before
This is mine now. You can't have it back. Who's holding it? Yeah, I am.
It's like, mine. Sir, you're standing in Eastern European. Like, Eastern European land, and we hate you. It's like, perfect. Should I stay or should I go?
Yeah, really.
There's a song about that.
Is there? I don't know.
So let's talk about when history really started.
So,
post 1776.
Well, and this is another topic of conversation, and not to get down so much of a rabbit hole, but there is a difference between finding the land and occupying the land that America is on versus actually what is the start of America. That's a huge debate that people don't understand because nobody's saying that this land started in 1776. They're saying America started in 1776 because this is when we signed the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, and we formally told the king to pound salt.
Right. So the creation of America, regardless of where your views are, is factually been July 4th, 1776, because that is when we seceded from the Brits, basically.
Yeah.
So July 4th, 1776, and we can have a whole nother discussion on that if we wanted to in the future of a new segment miniseries on how you and I don't believe what everybody else believes. But anyway, so July 4th, 1776 is obviously when the United States seceded from the Brits and created America. In July 9th, 1776, so 5 days later, New York was formed, which is...
That's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about that they were formed that quickly after. Dude, that is 5 days. What in the world during today's world can be accomplished in 5 days?
You could get gas. You could get gas in 5 days.
You can't negotiate gas prices in 5 days.
No. I mean, that's a power move.
Anything that has to do with government, especially if you're talking about federal and state government working together, never would be done in 5 days.
No.
Are you kidding me?
There's way too many hands in the pot.
Absolutely. So,
yeah.
New York was founded as a state in July 9th, 1776. And that's important because what?
I also want to make it clear the Declaration of Independence was signed August 2nd, 1776. July 4th is...
Hold on,
the
what?
issue, yeah.
Yeah,
so
the issue,
we
right.
issued the Declaration of Independence July 4th.
But we didn't sign it until August.
Correct.
Yeah, I gotcha. So, anyway, it was basically finalized July 4th, or it was understood on July 4th, but it wasn't finalized until August.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. So, and the reason that I bring this up is because there were two major purchases that formed the Buffalo area back in the before 1800. And those two purchases were the Phelps and Gorham purchase as well as the Holland purchase. So not getting too into the weeds here because we can literally talk about these two purchases for the next 4 hours. I'm not even kidding you.
Right, and literally the only one that we learned about was the Louisiana purchase.
Right. Which, again, brings me back to last week, is if it was more local focused, I probably would have paid more. But paid more attention, not paid more money. I mean, I probably would have paid more money too. But the Phelps and Gorham purchase, so this purchase happened after the Treaty of 1783, when which was basically ended the war between the Iroquois and the Brits. Obviously, when that one ended, there was no provision for the Iroquois land. Both Massachusetts and New York at this time claimed the lands of the Western New York. Eventually, New York gained governmental control over the land, and Massachusetts reserved preemptive rights. So in 1788, Massachusetts granted Oliver Phelps and Nathaniel Gorham and their partners the right to purchase 6 million acres of Indian land in Western New York.
So, just so everyone's clear, a preemptive right means you have the rights of the title and the right to sell.
Yep.
So, moving forward.
So, Massachusetts had those rights, even though it was Indian land. So, basically, they gave Phelps and Gorham the right to purchase 6 million acres of Indian land in Western New York. And in the summer of that year, a council took place at the Buffalo Creek, which was the Indian town at present city of Buffalo. Among these present were Reverend Mr. Kirkland, appointed by Massachusetts to oversee any treaty, a number of interpreters, which included the chief of Onondagas, Cayugas, and the Mohawks, Joseph Brant, John Butler, members of the Seneca Nation, and of course, Mr. Phelps and Mr. Gorham were present as well. So the resulting deal, which cost only at that time about $5,000 in today's world, we're going to take over all of these the Native American land for a penny.
So don't laugh. So 2.6
so sad.
So 2.6 million acres of land for $5,000.
Yeah, 6 million acres of land for $5,000.
No, 2.6 mil.
No, dude, 6 million right here. 6 million of acre was bought for. Oh no, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, so 2.6 million acres of land. No, 6 million of acres of land was purchased for $5,000, and then basically cleared after that any title of land for 2.6 million of acres and opened the door to white settlement. So they purchased it for $5,000, but then opened the door for that 2.6 million. You get what I'm saying?
Math.
Nailed it. I could be wrong. But anyway, so the boundaries of that agreement reached from Pennsylvania border into the south of the Lake Ontario in the north, and from the Genesee River on the west to Seneca Lake on the east. So I'll put up a graphic of this. Basically all of Western New York, spanning from Lake Ontario all the way down to Pennsylvania and to the left of Rochester.
So my next question is, you said Mr. Kirkland.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the guy that's like the store named after Kirkland's? Because I love that place.
I don't know, but maybe we can set them up with Mr. Pier 1 and they can become the best.
Well, Pier 1's closed now. They didn't survive the Rona. So, anyways.
Maybe they shouldn't have coasters for $1,000.
So,
losers.
They're the nicest coasters.
Yeah.
So, let's dive into the Holland purchase.
Okay, so the Holland purchase came after the Phelps and Gorham purchase.
All right, well, drink some water.
Yeah, I know, really. I'm getting a little fucking dry
So the Dutch investors, acting through the Holland Land Company, obtained the land in 1797 as part of the Holland Purchase. They selected the name New Amsterdam, but the settlers insisted on Buffalo, which was the name adopted when Buffalo was incorporated as a town in 1810.
Yeah, and we'll go off more on a tangent of 1810, obviously, in the next segment when we talk about the founding of the area. But the Holland Purchase is pivotal to understanding how the land that was basically bought by Phelps and Gorham during that Phelps and Gorham purchase now translated into a closer segment through that Holland Purchase. So the tract purchase in Western New York was 3.25 million acres, portion of that Phelps and Gorham purchase. So part of that purchase that they had of that 6 million. that laid west of the Genesee River. It was purchased in December of 1792, in February and July of 1793 from Robert Morris. Robert Morris was a signatory of the Declaration of Independence and a financier of the American Revolution. So kind of an important guy, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, he was the richest man in America, but he had purchased the land from Massachusetts in May 1791 after Phelps and Gorham failed to extinguish Indian title to this tract and had defaulted on payment in 1790. So basically, Phelps and Gorham went broke.
Yep.
Morris purchased all lands west of the Genesee River except for just the mere 185,000 acres, which was the Millyard Tract, which Phelps and Gorham retained along with the other lands east of the Genesee. Morris paid Massachusetts
A weird amount of money.
Yeah, so $333,333.34, which is about $5.02 million today.
Massachusetts probably was like, you know what? Let's make it $333,000. Yeah. And Morris was like, shit, how many threes is that? And he's like, oh man, I got to put 3333 with the thing over the top. How am I going to do that, dude?
Morris's purchase from Massachusetts was for some 3.75 million acres, but Morris kept back some 500,000 acres for himself in a tract 12 miles wide and running the breadth of western New York. Wrong way. Scroll down. There we go. From Lake Ontario to the Pennsylvania. So hold on. How do you... what is this? Like, the rich of the rich sat down with states and said, hey, I'm going to buy just a mere $4 million acres, or I'm sorry, 4 million acres of land for like, I don't know, a couple mil, and then I'll just own that.
Well,
like, what is this?
Honestly, it's weird to think about, but right now on realtor.com, you can buy like 100 plot acre land. Obviously, we're talking in the millions right now, but you can buy that. I don't know who owns it right now, but you can go on and buy 100 acres of land to do whatever you want on. So that was probably, honestly, on a bigger scale, what was happening back then. The state of Massachusetts was like, we don't know what the hell to do. There's people saying A up there. Why is it so close to Canada? We don't want this land anymore. And they just sold it to this dude for $350,000. That's what happened. And he's like, all right, well, I'll take this land and do whatever I want on it, which is where we're at today. So my favorite part of this is this last little bit, because this gets into the formation of, I'm pretty sure I included it on here, but the formation of reservations. So they're like, we're going to buy all this land, but you Native Americans, you have to stay in this reservation. This is so sad. I feel so bad for anybody that is Native American ancestor. But anyway, so before Morris could give the Holland Land Company title to this land, however, it was necessary to extinguish the Indians' preemptive right to the land. So this was achieved in 1797 for the Treaty of Big Tree. That's what they called it. And it was executed on the Genesee River near modern-day Geneseo, south of Rochester, New York. Representatives of the Holland Land Company, Robert Morris, the Indians, and the Commissioner of the United States gathered at Big Tree in August of 1797, and negotiations between the chiefs, sachems present, including Red Jacket, Complanter, Governor Blacksnake, Farmers Brothers, and about 50 others. Red Jacket and corn planters, spoke strongly against selling the land. They held out for reservations, that is, land which the Indians would keep for their own use. So after much discussion, the treaty was signed September 15th, 1797, and the Native Americans were to receive $100,000, about $1.51 million today, for their rights to about only 3.75 million acres, as they reserved about 200,000 acres for themselves. So out of that 3.75 acres, they got, or 3.75 million acres, they got about 200,000 for their reservations. That's so sad, dude. I didn't know this was a depressing podcast.
Could you imagine getting that?
No.
What a shit end of the stick that is.
Like, I'm going to come in, buy your house, not buy it, I'm going to take your house, and I'll give you your room. That office that's weirdly shaped upstairs, I'll give you that. But everything else is mine. And if you want anything from that room, like if you want your coffee pot that's in the kitchen that I now own, you can pay me for it. But I own everything here now. That's so messed up, dude. It really is. And not saying that I didn't understand it before, because I obviously did. Like, I understand the tragedies of white folk coming in and destroying and decimating Native American populations. But putting it into this context,
that and the disease we brought, and then we made them walk for a while. You know, like Jesus. You know, like when you actually sit down and you're like, hold on, we're gonna force you. Google quick. How long was it? The Oregon Trail. How long was that?
I don't know, but I think it was in Oregon.
Dude, we made like video games of that. You know what I mean? 2,000. It was a 2,000-mile walk. Hey, we're going to force you to walk 2,000 miles.
Which
hundreds of thousands of American pioneers in the mid-1800s to emigrate west. The trail was arduous and snaked through Missouri and present-day Kansas, Nebraska, Wyoming, Idaho, and finally into Oregon.
Jesus.
No, I'm sorry. The Oregon Trail is different than what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Trail of Tears.
For some reason, I knew you were talking about the Trail of Tears.
Yeah, my brain's all over the place because okay. So the Trail of Tears was a series of forced relocations of approximately 60,000 Native Americans between 1830 and 1850 by the United States government. So, was how long? 5,043 miles. So, not only did we just occupy their own home, then we forced them to walk 5,043 miles. Mm-hmm. And then we hit them with smallpox and all the other shit that we showed up with.
Yeah. But, I mean, not to side on the side of the Europeans, but if they didn't come, we wouldn't have Western civilization what we have today.
I know that. And
because
also, I mean, I'm from
developed.
Ireland, so I left for different reasons, but like, jeez, that's so shitty.
It is. It is very shitty. But, I mean, one thing that, if anything, we found out in 2020 and the recent years more than any other year is it's okay to remember the absolutely atrocities that happened in history as long as you don't repeat them. Like, this whole situation that we went through back in the 1700s was part of the history of the United States. It's okay to have a bad past as long as you don't repeat it in the future.
Right.
And taking down statues, and not to go down this road, but we have to remember them some way. And it's just something that happened, and we have to get through it, and it made us the country that we are today. But the history is history. We can't change it, but we have to learn from it.
Right.
So that was an interesting episode. We talked about the first Europeans during this episode. And again, if you missed it, we talked about the pre-colonization. So specifically the native tribes that we're talking about during this episode, we talked about last week during our first episode. Next week, we have the founding in the 19th century, which is going to span basically from 1793, which some of it we talked about today, but we'll make sure we don't overlap.
Right.
And all the way up until 1825, like mid-1850s is when we'll have the episode on our Erie Canal. But really the founding in the 19th century is what we'll talk about next week. So if you enjoyed this content, if we said anything wrong, please leave a comment below. We're getting all this information as we go. I mean, I'm not a history major. You're not a history major. This is something that we just wanted to do for fun, and then also just to further our knowledge of this topic. So if we said anything wrong, leave a comment below. Leave a like on this video if you liked it. And we'll see you next week on the founding of the 19th century. Michael, wrap us up.
Instagram, Buffalo Happy Hour 12. Facebook, Buffalo Happy Hour. YouTube, Buffalo Happy Hour. We appreciate all support. Please subscribe. Please like. Please comment. Please share. Repost. All that fun stuff. We appreciate everything, guys. We still have sweaters for sale. If you're interested in a size, let us know. We'll mail it right to you. And this has been episode 58. So we're clearly not going to stop. We're too stubborn. And
we have some cool interviews coming out, too. You want to make that plug
yeah, we
really
do.
quick?
So we have 13 Monkeys coming out soon, which is right to my left, your right. And I'm very excited for that interview just because it's another local vet who's coming out with a fantastic whiskey. And there's customizable medallions on it, which you can hear. It's an actual medallion. It's super nice. It's really heavy duty. All proceeds go to the KIA Memorial Ruck March and the KIA Memorial organization as a whole, because they do more than just a Ruck March at Chestnut Ridge every year. So that's coming out. We have a What do we have coming up? So we have a restaurant coming up. We're working with another totally different. I don't even know what to call it. It's a different business. It's a market. So we're working with two totally different markets in upcoming interviews. So be on the lookout for that.
Which relate kind of to what our passions are, as just people in general.
Yeah, for sure. And outside of that, we also have a. Who else is coming? What's coming out on Friday?
This coming Friday or the Friday with this?
No, this coming Friday. We have. It was after 21 Bricks.
Jesus.
I know, we did a ton.
21 Bricks. We have Garrett Thomas that just released
That's right.
with our Halloween episode, so 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
With this episode, though, we're releasing the 13 Monkeys episode.
Perfect. So then go
with
back
Jason
last
from
Friday
there,
and then watch that. So we are recording this before Garrett Thomas goes live, just so you guys can see how far ahead we are with our interviews and everything else. We're jam-packed busy.
Yeah, and we try to outline when these episodes go live, especially when we have interviews from people with different products. I lied. This is not going this week because this is going with the 13 Monkeys review when we actually review 13 Monkeys.
Okay.
This interview that's going with this is with Addie's Liquor Store. So when we interviewed the people that own Addie's Liquor Store that have been nice enough basically to lend us their space whenever we want.
Yeah.
Which has been extremely huge for us. Addie's, thank you again so much for everything that you've done. You've allowed us to have this secondary recording space instead of having some people come to my house. It's allowing more of a professional environment where we can interview people like Jason from 13 Monkeys. So go show Addie some love. They do have 13 Monkeys. They do have Devil's River. I'm almost positive. Mm-hmm. And they're just a huge liquor store. So anytime that you need liquor, go there. But yeah, Mike, this has been episode 58 of the Buffalo Happy Hour. Everybody drink responsibly and just be a good person.
That's right.
That's all we
Don't
ask.
litter.
Yep, we're out.
Cheers.